Hello Raptors fans. The Toronto Raptors may not have been busy the night of the draft, and may have taken their sweet time during free agency, but in the end, the Raptors front office made some big decisions this offseason. Today we're going to look at the signings the Raptors made, and didn't make, and grade out what we think of them. Another element that'll be discussed is what the Raptors did to prepare for Giannis Antetokounmpo's upcoming free agency. Remember to like and subscribe for weekly Raptors content. Let's jump in. As we mentioned in last week's podcast with draft expert Sam, the Toronto Raptors did not make any trades during the draft and used their own 29 and 59th picks to select Malachi Flynn and Jalen Harris. In fact, the Raptors didn't make any trades this offseason and decided to use cap space to adjust their roster instead. But that doesn't mean that the decisions made this offseason weren't impactful. Let's go down the list. Number 1. The biggest news for the Toronto Raptors during free agency was the signing of Fred VanVleet to a 4-year, $85 million contract. Number 2 was letting Serge and Mark walk in free agency, which was probably the second biggest decision the Raptors had to make. In this section, we'll discuss how the Raptors planned for the 2021 free agency class, which of course could include Giannis Antetokounmpo, assuming he doesn't sign the Supermax contract prior to me putting this video out. Number 3, signing Aron Baynes as the Raptors' starting center was probably the third largest decision the Raptors had to make this November. But if Aron Baynes' Twitter fan account asks, tell them this was the most important decision. As for number 4 on the list, I will individually grade out all of the other minor signings that the Raptors made to fill out the roster, including re-upping Chris Boucher, signing Alex Len, signing DeAndre Bembry, re-signing Oshae Brissett, and other minor deals that the Raptors made. Let's start with the Fred VanVleet deal. Fred was one of the most notable free agents heading into this offseason, with a few teams being potential suitors for him, notably the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. I predicted in the Rebuilding the Raptors video I made a little over a month ago that Fred VanVleet could potentially be offered over $20 million. And I suggested if that was the asking price, or perhaps a little bit over that, the Raptors should really pull the trigger and bring him back. Well, it appears that the Raptors agreed with that take, as I'm sure they're watching my videos religiously, and Fred received an $85 million contract over 4 years, which averages out to a little over $20 million a season. It probably helped that the Detroit Pistons did whatever the hell they did this past offseason, which was to throw money at anyone taller than 6'9" and give Jeremy Grant a $60 million contract. Some in Pistons land think they dodged a bullet with Fred VanVleet, but I think Fred is a safer bet than giving Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, and Jahlil Okafor roughly a gazillion dollars. If you ask me, the final few days before the signing of the Fred VanVleet deal was bargaining between his camp and the Raptors and the Knicks, with Fred ultimately deciding to stay with the Raptors at a deal I think is good for both sides. As I already mentioned when I talked about a potential deal with the Raptors paying Fred around $20 million a season, I think it's a fair contract, although that is predicated on Fred continuing to improve as a player. Fred's work ethic is excellent, and his work has made him a productive guard with all-star potential. The key word is potential, as he's not quite at that level yet, and would need to improve on various facets of his game, notably finishing around the basket and running the pick and roll to truly deserve the money he's now making. I do believe he will improve, which is why I think this is a good deal. I will give the deal a B+ for the Raptors and an A+ for Fred VanVleet. Fred's humble origins in Rockford, Illinois, his bet-on-yourself philosophy and hard work have all paid off for the former Wichita State Shocker, as he secured himself a life-changing amount of money. Go out and prove your fans right, Fred. The next grades given out will be for the Raptors deciding not to bring back two pieces of their championship roster, namely Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol. It's a bit strange to be giving a grade based on something that the Raptors didn't do, but these were certainly two big decisions. And Gasol and Ibaka's performances on the two LA franchises and what the Raptors are able to do in next season's free agency will ultimately vindicate or refute what the Raptors chose to do with these two players. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone following this channel that the Raptors' plans this offseason are based largely on next offseason. Preserving max cap space next offseason was predicted to be something that the Raptors cared a great deal about, and this offseason more or less confirmed that. Gasol and Ibaka were looking for 2-year deals, which they both received, Ibaka getting $18 million over 2 years from the Clippers, and Gasol receiving a 2-year $5 million deal from the Lakers. To drive home the point about the Raptors emphasizing the 2021 free agency class, Ibaka and Gasol's replacements at the big spots, namely Aron Baynes, Chris Boucher, and Alex Len, all received deals that would let the Raptors walk away from their contracts next offseason. The 2021 free agency class, at the time of me recording this video, includes Giannis Antetokounmpo. So long as he doesn't re-sign with Milwaukee, he will become an unrestricted free agent next offseason. Not only have the Raptors secured maximum space in 2021, as John Hollinger points out, the Raptors have also assembled a number of contracts that, when combined, allow the Raptors to trade for a player making $27.5 million a season. That means that the Raptors could potentially trade for Giannis this season if they needed to, perhaps if he signed his extension and then wanted out halfway through the season. That last part is a long shot for sure, but it never hurts to be prepared. As for the victims of the Raptors' stinginess, I think if the Raptors could have brought back Ibaka on a 1-year deal, they would have. Gasol? Now that's a bit more of a question mark considering the amount that he signed for on the Lakers. Ibaka, while a good contributor based on traditional statistics, has advanced stats that grade his impact as only slightly above average. Gasol is the opposite. His advanced statistics are great, but his counting stats are poor. Gasol also appears to be on a downward slope, as he's no longer an interior scoring threat, and as the Raptors saw in the playoffs, if he isn't hitting his threes, his effect on the offense is questionable to negative. Gasol is still a formidable defender, however. This is a very tough decision to grade, as there are multiple aspects to the Raptors not retaining their dependable championship frontcourt combo. If Ibaka and Gasol look great on the 2 LA teams, the replacements for the Raptors don't play up to expectations, and the Raptors strike out in next season's free agency, this will look like a major misstep. If Ibaka and Gasol perform poorly, the Raptors' replacements look great, and/or the Raptors land a major free agent next offseason, this will look absolutely brilliant. Because I think that at least one of those things will come true, I like the decision for the Raptors, and I'll give it a B. The third item on the list of things I have to grade is none other than the man, the legend, the meme himself, Aron J. Baynes. Free agency was a roller coaster ride for the Raptors, as the previously mentioned Detroit Pistons decided to make it rain, and threw tons of money at every tall person in the league with a pulse. This triggered a big man arms race, and the list of available bigs quickly dwindled. As the market seemed to dry up, one shining light still flickered in the dark: Aron Baynes. Baynes has just come off his most productive season in Phoenix, and was thought to be a desirable veteran stretch big that could fit on a number of rosters. I hastily set up a shrine on Twitter, hoping to have the NBA gods bless the Raptors with an Australian savior. And it worked. Aron Baynes signed with the Toronto Raptors. And I have to say, I really like the fit. Baynes, as mentioned, is a rugged center that can bang in the post and hit the three. On top of that, fans of Kyle Lowry's ability to draw offensive fouls, otherwise known as flopping, will be thrilled by Aron Baynes' ability to fall over in the paint. He's really good at it. Baynes' 3-and-D skill set matches what the Raptors are looking for. The Raptors want to run a 5-out offense, and have a versatile group of defenders that can match up against various opposing lineups, and Baynes definitely fits the bill. Along with the fit, the Raptors also managed to secure a good deal for Baynes. While the deal is slated for 2 years, the second year is a team option, meaning that if the Raptors need to create max cap space, they don't have to bring him back. Now, if they don't land their desired free agent, or are able to make room another way, Baynes can be brought back on a team-friendly deal. One of Baynes' negatives, his age, is also somewhat negated by a short-term deal as well. I grade this deal an A-. I love the fit and I love the deal. The potential downsides are his health, which has been a bit rocky over the past few seasons, his age, and whether his three-point shooting ability is just a flash in the pan. Overall, I'm very happy with the signings, and if Baynes' unofficial fan club asks, tell him I gave it an A+. The last section of this video will deal with the other more minor deals that the Raptors made in free agency, including the re-signing of their own free agents. So let's start with the biggest salary and work downwards. First off, the Raptors rewarded Chris Boucher with a $6.5 million per year contract with a team option for the second year. Boucher is statistically a very productive player, and while not young for the number of years he's been in the league, he's 27 years old and in his third year, there still appears to be upside if his thin frame can hold up to the bump and grind of being an NBA big man. I think that Boucher is intriguing enough as a player to deserve the contract the Raptors gave him, and the team option makes this a high upside deal. I give it a B+. Next on the list is Alex Len. Alex Len was most recently a Sacramento King, but he's bounced around the league after a few relatively disappointing seasons with the Phoenix Suns as the number 5 overall pick in the 2013 NBA draft. Now 26, Alex Len has never made the playoffs, but that's mostly because he's been playing with basement-dwelling teams. Alex Len is a very meat-and-potatoes big man. He's physical, he's 7 feet tall, he rebounds, and his defense is alright. He flirted with shooting the three and made 36% of them in Atlanta a few years ago, but that doesn't seem permanent per se. Basically, the Raptors needed big man depth, and Alex Len looks like a dependable stopgap on a cheap one-year contract. I'll give it a C+. Next, we have DeAndre Bembry. Bembry was most recently on the Atlanta Hawks, and while he has a high motor and a few tools, I'm not exactly sure what the Raptors see in him. As far as advanced statistics go, Bembry is on the last page of RPM, meaning that stat considers him one of the 20 worst players in the entire league, and from what I've seen out of him on League Pass, I haven't been particularly impressed. The Raptors front office does appear to like taking chances on guys that other teams have given up on, but I'm not very optimistic about him as a player. It is a minimum contract, which means this signing isn't horrible or anything, but he's just not someone I'm particularly excited about. I'll give this signing a D. Oshae Brissett was also brought back on a minimum contract. Brissett didn't receive many minutes on the NBA version of the Raptors, but did get significant time with the Raptors 905. Brissett is an energy forward who always seems to be in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, like many players with his skill set, he isn't a good shooter. Shooting the three seemed to be a priority for Brissett in the G League, as he got up almost 5 3-point attempts per game, and only managed to convert on 26% of them. When Brissett did play in the NBA, he did some good things, like the impressive energy he showed during the Raptors' victory over the Boston Celtics back in January. I think the Raptors see something in him, which is a good sign, but I can only grade what I see in front of me, so I'm giving this a C. Last on the list are the camp invites: Yuta Watanabe, Henry Ellenson, and Elise Johnson. Watanabe is a 26-year-old wing who became only the second Japanese player to play in the NBA when he debuted 2 years ago for the Grizzlies. While a good story and a decent defender, I don't think he'll be retained by the Raptors. Elise Johnson is a 23-year-old 6'7" forward who was a second-round pick by the Indiana Pacers and has spent most of his career in the G League. His stats in the G League are pretty good, as he's a strong rebounder and appears to have somewhat of a three-point shot. Henry Ellenson is another intriguing player, who stands at 6'10" and has excellent G League stats. He has a complete offensive game for a big man, with the ability to shoot, pass, and put the ball on the floor. His defense isn't good, which is presumably what has kept him out of the league, as his offensive skill set appears to be what the NBA is trending towards in big men. It's tough to give a grade to camp invites, but I think Johnson and Ellenson have the potential to make the final roster. With that being the case, I'll give these camp signings an A. Apart from the draft, which I covered in my previous video, these are all of the personnel moves the Toronto Raptors made this offseason. Do you agree with the grades? Let me know what you think in the comments. I love hearing your opinions, and I'm actively responding to comments when I have the opportunity. On that note, please follow me on Twitter at Raptors Report for more Raptors and NBA related content. And finally, thanks for watching Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.